No.
This is where we do the. This podcast is brought to you by Boba.
Pretty much, yeah. So yeah, welcome everyone once again at the Cusp of Freedom. If you haven't subscribed yet, click that subscribe button. And yeah, today on this podcast, I have a very special friend, someone that I admire for creativity and her tenacity and hard work. Without further ado, I'll let her introduce herself.
I'm Melissa. I am a software engineer and maybe an artist. I dabble in some art. Maybe.
Okay, Melissa, take us down your journey of becoming a software developer. How long have you been a developer for?
Um, Funny story. I've been a developer actually for like 5 years, but my skill level, actually a little bit more than 5 years. I'm probably like at junior or mid like level, mainly because life kind of just gets in the way sometimes. So yeah, I've been a developer for about 6 years. Yeah, about 6 years.
Take us down the path of when you were younger, growing up. Did you want to become a developer, or did you want to become an artist?
I wanted to be an artist. I really wanted to be an artist. I didn't even think about being a developer until like in my late 20s. I've always played with computers. Back when I was starting, like we had like an old Windows PC, and I used to like just type in commands. And back then it was called MS-DOS prompt, but it's a terminal. It's a terminal basically, or the command line.
Okay, it makes sense now.
So now you can type in like commands to open like files and like programs and stuff. So I used to do that because it was cool, but it was really dorky.
So you've always been dorky and artistic.
I guess. But yeah, I didn't really like math, and I thought if you are a software engineer or a software developer, you need to be good at math.
Mm-hmm.
So
was that a lie or
what?
Was that a myth or a truth?
I think there's some truth to it. It's not the math that you need to be good at. It's the breaking down of a problem into little bite-sized pieces and solving it. And I think when you take math classes or computer science classes, even just science, I think that helps train your brain to think of things in steps and break down big problems and then finally find a solution that way. So I think yeah. So kinda yes, kinda no.
So you don't need math, but it's a good to have if you want to have an easier route pursuing software engineering, or for it to be easier on you.
Yeah, I think you need some really good logical thinking skills. Definitely, if I always say like if you're a chef and you can follow a recipe book or just like create something and then like write a recipe for it, you'd probably also be good at engineering, because it's when you're like problem solving with software engineering and stuff, it's like following a recipe. You have to have your own little system, like you follow, okay, well, if I do this, will this work? Or if I do that, what happens here? And you just kind of gotta break it down and follow your formula, and eventually you'll get to a solution.
All right. So growing up, you didn't think of becoming a software geek, but you wanted to become the next Picasso, right? And I don't know, where did you grow up? Did you grow up here in Greensboro?
No, I grew up in different places. We lived in the Philippines for a while. I was born there. And then we moved to Chicago.
How old?
I was like around 12, I think.
wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We moved to Chicago. That's when I really honed in my art skills. It was, when you immigrate, sometimes it's hard to make friends in America. So it's just at home, just doodling and playing with video games on the computer. um, and then we moved to Northern Virginia. So, yeah, we moved around a lot.
So moving around that much, I guess traveling at the age of 12, did your perception of the world change from what it was when you were just in the Philippines?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's the Philippines is that's like a different culture, different way of thinking about just life, and then you come to America and there's the westernized mindset, and that's also different. And then also just like moving to different parts of the country, because even after I graduated high school, I moved to different parts of the country too, and just being different regions, like, and meeting different people, seeing different things, experiencing different things, it just really opens you up to different ways of thinking.
Would you say it helped you adapt or be a better adapter?
Yeah, for sure. Like, you gotta be flexible. For sure. Like, I remember this one yoga class. The teacher was like, you have to be flexible both in your body and in life to prevent yourself from injury. And that's like a philosophy that I've kind of taken in. Like, you have to be flexible both in your life, because that prevents you from injuring yourself, from expectations. Also, just, even in software engineering, being a software engineer, like, if the solution isn't working, you gotta pivot and try something else, right? Because if you're like hard pressed on like, I gotta make this work this way,
Insanity.
yeah, you're gonna go nuts. You gotta take a step back and be like, you know what? Let me just go play this video game first, or make this drawing, or roller skate, or whatever, and then come back to your problem, and then you'll
Figure it out better.
Yeah.
I like that approach. So when you were going to different schools here in the United States, did you go to college for arts or?
Actually, no. I didn't go to college.
Okay. So how did you become a software engineer? How did you go from art?
Oh man.
What were you working in before you got into software?
I was a very lost kid. Well, maybe the word is like free spirit. So I was gonna go to art school. I was preparing my portfolio. I started taking art classes to kind of build up my portfolio and apply. And then suddenly I just got really disillusioned with art. And I started questioning whether this thing that I really love, if I wanted it to be my job after art school, like what was I gonna do after art school? And I didn't want my art, this form of self-expression that I had, to be for somebody else. I wanted it just for me, just because it was therapy for me. So for a while I was kind of lost and I didn't know what I wanted to do anymore. And all this time I was like working just like little jobs. I started working, actually, I ended up being a chiropractic assistant. I was doing like
Therapeutic work.
yeah, I was also doing tests and x-rays for the chiropractors. And then I find myself in this field doing more admin work, doing marketing for them, patient education, and with all that came tinkering with their website and coding, like creating their emails. But of course, I had to go extra and code their emails for them. And then that's when I was like, maybe I should offer this service to other businesses. And then before you know it, I started helping other small businesses start their website. I started ghostwriting articles.
Okay. You became ghostwriter.
I was doing all these like content creating, email marketing, website edits, website management, social media marketing. And then I was like, maybe I should take a course or something. And I started self-teaching through Free Code Camp. I started just like looking at this website, learning about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then from there, I signed up to a real boot camp. And I actually didn't even finish this boot camp because I ended up starting an internship with a small startup. And then that's when I just like really got immersed in JavaScript. And so that's where
So you are.
yeah, I just got like immersed and now I'm all JavaScript.
Interesting. So I have two questions. Back when before you started this job, or before you started interning for what became your job, I think, when you were dabbling around in all these different website content creation, digital marketing, what was challenging during that time? Because it seems like you were in a space where you were trying to figure out what you want to do, but you were also like exploring other things you could do in the meantime. So what was your mindset back then? Like, what was the most challenging thing of just figuring things out as you go?
I think the most challenging part of that time is whether I was doing it right. I was always wondering if like the things that I'm learning from these free websites, also YouTube, like I'm learning how to write HTML and CSS, but it was always in my mind, like, is this the optimal way to write it? Like, is there like easier? I always already thought like there's gotta be a cleaner way to write this, because I know I was writing junk. I think when you start out as a developer, you always write junk. You're like writing like a caveman, a Neanderthal. And when you realize that you need somebody with more experience to look at your work and just be like, oh, here's how you can structure this, then you kind of get better that way, because you're seeing how somebody else writes, seeing their approach. But yeah, that was the biggest challenge, is that I didn't have somebody doing that for me. And that's when I was like, I need to sign up for a boot camp, because then they provide, one, somebody that is going to hold me accountable with my progress, and two, look at my code and be like, this is terrible, write it this way.
Nice.
But isn't it like that? Like,
It is.
I feel like when you're learning to code, right, it's just like learning how to write like poetry, or learning how to write a short story, a novel. When you start writing, your first draft is terrible, and then you get somebody that edits, and then like, well, maybe you should do it this way, or I need more information about this paragraph, and then that's how you learn to write, is somebody doing that. Or even just reading books. You read other people's code and you learn a different way to write or structure your code.
My goodness, man. So you make it sound so easy comparing coding to reading a book, reading and writing a book.
Book, recipes, being a chef. Yeah, it's just, program is just like anything else, really.
Wow. So I guess like your time learning how to code really wasn't that much challenging. It was just more of like an iterative process that you kept on for how long?
About 6 years. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you think about it, like, it's been a lifelong thing, really. Because it's not about actually coding. It's the way you think that
Makes coding easier.
yeah, it's this way of approaching problems, and just figuring out solutions. It's your creativity kind of comes into play too, like being creative in your solutions. So it's like a lifelong process, I guess, if you think about it.
So you took this lifelong process and you became a software dev without any debt.
Yeah, I would say I've paid off my boot camp because it's I took the remote boot camps, which is cheaper.
How much was it?
It was like in the range of like 6,000 at the time. I think they're a bit pricier now.
Oh, word?
But I think they have options now where you don't pay anything until you graduate and find a job.
Oh, nice. What a good investment.
Yeah, it's a really good investment because considering the payoff when you get a job and you're making to start at least like 65, 70 if you're like a junior, maybe 85 in some areas, right? That's like a good investment.
Oh, yeah. So would you say that anyone can be a software engineer or a software developer regardless of their math skills?
Absolutely.
You gotta be a little creative.
I'm really terrible at math still. So yeah, anybody can do it. And I'm of average intelligence too. So anybody can do it.
Nice.
For real. I'm just like a regular person that just like tinkers and stuff. I think that's it. Just as long as you have that curiosity mindset and you're not like you don't get frustrated, like, well, everybody gets frustrated, but you approach things through play. I think you could make it far anywhere in life, really.
Play to win.
Yeah.
Man, it seems like your journey wasn't that challenging for you. For most of us, we've gone through it. But
it is. It's just
you make it sound easy.
Yeah, I mean, but you just gotta play. You just gotta approach everything as play. Don't worry about failing, although it's really scary. But don't worry about failing because failing is just part of the process. Like you fail when you quit, basically. So just keep going.
Interesting. So did you when you started your journey in the software development space, did you know that you wanted something remote, or did it just occur to you that you were remote after COVID?
I've always wanted to work remote. I actually didn't consider remote though until I had my first child. That's when I started. That's when really I started like tinkering with remote work. Was when I was pregnant and I couldn't go into the office anymore because I was pregnant. I was lazy. I just wanted to stay home. So that's when they started giving me work to do at home, which is like when I was starting to do a little bit of website design, ghostwriting, content creating, all that stuff I was doing from home. And then I had my baby and I was like, I want to stay home with my baby for the first year. So then that was my focus, was to just only find remote jobs. And yeah, that now I see the benefits of going to an office, but the hybrid office and work from home lifestyle is so much better. It's so much more flexible. So yeah, I will always choose remote.
Interesting. I have so many questions.
We only have 30 minutes.
Yeah, I'm trying to concise it. Okay, so you've been working. So now that you know how you can work remote, would you say that we'll ever go back to the office? Like you said, many developers have now started work remote and have seen the flexibility it allocates to our time. Do you feel like in the near, like 5 years from now, we'll stay remote? Everything will go even more remote, or do you think that it'll be more hybrid or in office type of deal?
I think it's probably going to be more hybrid. I think there is a danger I feel like with remote work, like if us in the US, we're like always remote, what's going to keep them from outsourcing these jobs to other countries, right? But right? But
Is that a bad thing though?
um I don't know. I mean,
It would just make things more competitive. But is that a bad
yeah,
thing?
for sure. But I think there is a value to in office, um, like just face to face communication and meeting the people, your team, meeting the people you work with. So even if it's not in the office, if you all just come together once a month or once every couple of months, have a team lunch or whatever, I think there's really good value in that because remote, like bonding remotely is not as strong as like bonding in person, right?
Yeah.
I think,
But you can bond in person and then go about your way.
yeah.
We bonded, all right. You know.
Like we shared lunch. That's it. Like we're done. But I think that also helps smooth things over. Like sometimes you get a Slack message, right, and you don't know the tone of this person. You're just like, did he mean that as a compliment, or is he like being sarcastic?
Yeah, that's what you mean.
But then when you meet that person, you're just like, oh, okay, he's a very cheery person, so they probably like compliment.
I mean, I'm personally ruling that we never go back to the office. But
I think also there's this thing where like, well, you get it when you're traveling, this serendipitous interactions, people that like you just randomly meet, people that you talk to, and then it becomes something really good, right? Like us, like our meeting, that's like a serendipitous like interaction,
yeah.
like how we met. Like I was networking, trying to find a job, networking, and yeah, I met a lot of people on that platform, just like that helped me get to
Where you
the
are.
job. Yeah.
Interesting. So networking, you say, is also a big key people need to get.
Oh, for sure. Networking is big, I think, in software development. Just I think that's probably one thing that they don't really tell you when they're trying to hook you into boot camp, right? They don't say that the job, the field is competitive because a lot of people are trying to get into tech. But the interview process is so time consuming and it's so intense.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the interview process. Do you feel like you should get paid for the interview process?
I wish. Yeah. That would be great because some of these places they make you take home part of the interview to build something, right? I had an interview where I had to build a React component, like it was like a timer, and they had like specifications on what to do, and that took a lot of time like out of my usual schedule. I was also working still at that time, so yeah, it's a lot. And plus if you're doing like multiple applications at a time, it's a lot of time that you got to dedicate and energy, and then 9 out of 10 you get rejected.
You're rejected. So yeah, Fang, you guys should listen up. If you're gonna bombard us with 5-round interviews and technical questions all day, you should pay us.
Hear that, recruiters?
Yeah, exactly. Got a $500 check for these interviews that we pass and don't get anyway.
That's when you get a red receipt on the LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's so
Like,
crazy.
here, we'll pay you $500 to actually just answer these questions. Yeah, sure.
That's way more intriguing than like, because I remember when I got laid off, man, I kept on passing interviews, but just wasn't getting jobs.
Yeah.
That's frustrating.
Isn't that crazy that like you're a good fit for the job, you did everything right, and then they still reject you?
Yeah,
That's
it happens to the best of us.
yeah. And then or like some of them, I failed a lot though. I failed a lot of interviews. The in person, like just talking to their HR, to recruiter, you get so nervous.
Do you have any tips for anyone that might be going through interview processes soon?
Practice. Practice lead code, practice talking to people. Practice your story. Like, make sure you have your story straight. Don't jump around. Just make sure you got one story you tell all the recruiters. But most of all, also just like while you're interviewing, build like a little side project, a fun little side project that you're doing, because that's something you may be able to fall back on. Is just like, hey, wait a minute, let me show you this thing I built, and that might be enough to impress them.
That's actually a really good advice. I think when you have a GitHub account and a GitHub account where you're actually active on projects, you can definitely show off some of your projects to get a lead on these interviews.
For sure, the commit they also look at your commit history. You know, here's a little life hack or pro tip. When you're doing lead code, commit your results into GitHub, so it looks like you're like really active in your commits, but they're actually just like lead code solutions. But that actually worked well for me in one of the interviews, because like they looked at my history and like, wow, you're doing a lot of like commits and working, you know. And then they asked me this one lead code question that I had already solved, and so I just opened up my GitHub.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's like, yes, practice.
Yeah, that's the benefit of practicing, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Do you feel like remote work is because I personally feel like remote work's better because it gives younger people like me an opportunity to go to other countries where I can live cheaper, meet people, what's the word?
Serendipitous.
Serendipitous people. And yeah, and just overall I challenge myself more frequently. My life is less repetitive. Like, what would you say if, like, I don't know, I just feel like companies should make things remote, or give, like, if you have the option to be remote and you can do your work effectively, I feel like there's no reason.
I think remote is really a really good option.
How do you think it can change the world if more people work remote?
Flexibility. I think people having more flexibility in their schedule. I don't think not everybody can work remote though. I think there's people out there that really need that in-office setting.
Yeah.
But I think for most people that are working remote, the flexibility and in their schedule, it just helps them be more productive. And when you're productive, or just if you're happy with your schedule, you're happy, you got your work-life balance, you know, you have that going, you're more productive, you're happy, everything just is better.
Yeah, just happens.
You're actually, I think I was reading somewhere where like when you're happy or you're satisfied, you're actually smarter. Your brain functions better. But if you're like sad, depressed, or like frustrated, you're like 20% dumber.
all you're thinking about is those problems.
Yeah. So like, how can you build something? How can you solve something? Or how can you like work with a team if you like
You're not happy with it.
Yeah.
Now that we've spoken a little bit about why and how you became who you are, and obviously some challenges that weren't really challenges for you that you went through in order to become a software developer.
Well, they were challenges for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about, you know, your life philosophy or a philosophy you live by.
I have so many. A life philosophy that I live by. I think I'm gonna go back and just say that, you know, just always be curious and approach things through play.
I love that philosophy.
Yeah, like even if you're not like the gaming type, you know, approach everything in your life like it's kind of like it's a game.
It's hard to be upset when your borderline is goofy, right?
Yeah, that that is very true. Yeah, just follow, follow the thing that like makes you happy. Just it might not be like a passion or like just it might not be like what you think is productive, but if you're just following the things that you feel like are fun, that you really enjoy, they kind of make you happy, they make you feel good, that's your like body, that's your spirit telling you go this way, it's gonna lead to something.
So for anybody out there that feels very artistic and wants to end up like Melissa, just follow what makes you happy. I'm just kidding, but it sounds good. I actually do feel like there's a trait amongst very successful people that I've met, and one of that main trait is curiosity.
Yeah.
Like people that aren't afraid to ask questions or to know more, just tend to be more successful, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, much respect to that like philosophy. And is there any last keyword of advice you would want to leave somebody watching this and hoping to be like you or better someday? Like, what could they do in their lives to be better than you? Oh wait, first, if you could go back to college, would you have done computer science rather than arts, or would you have still done art? Not that you know you could have been a software engineer without college even.
I think, I don't know. That's a really good question. I think if I were to go back without thinking about without worrying about the money, the tuition and all that stuff, I'd probably go back and do art. Because I could always just take a boot camp. Like I know now you can like you can learn a lot of things online for free. Yeah, and become a developer. And that's like, and the only thing that inhibits people from doing that is that it takes a lot of work and you have to get over this learning curve, right? But if I were to go back, I would just like not worry and just enjoy.
Interesting.
Just art.
I love it. So yeah, that steep learning curve is, I'd agree, that's probably the biggest thing.
I think that's where people get knocked off.
Yeah.
It's like when you start like getting into programming and you're just like not understanding the concepts, and yeah, you just like, I can't do this, but just keep going, keep hacking at it. It'll click one day. You're just like,
one day you'll wake up and be like, how did I not get this 99 days ago?
right? Yep, exactly. That's exactly how it happens. I don't know. Did you get that? Where like,
well, it took me like 2 months to learn, but that's also because I had a really good mentor, and I knew how to do flowcharts before I learned how to code. So I like write a flowchart, and then my code would be like the same thing.
yeah, that's it. See, recipe too. If you're like writing down a recipe, that's exactly the same thing.
Yeah, but any last word of advice for anyone watching this, hoping to become a software developer?
Yeah, I guess it's just to like keep going, keep like first take that first step, just like learn something small, take it in small steps, and then just start building from that. And don't feel like you're in a rush. I think that was my mistake in the beginning, is that I was trying to go and learn this thing really fast so I can be better for my clients who didn't really know the difference between what I was giving them and if I wrote better code. All they cared about is if it functioned. But yeah, I think just go at your pace, and just really try to absorb the concepts and build.
Remember when you said something about you having the art talent but not wanting it to belong to someone else, like you wanted it for yourself? I mean, how do you feel about your software skill though? It sounds like you have experience working with clients. Like, wouldn't you want to like have your own clients? And just like, do you think you make more money having your own clients than
I would, but I feel like I don't want to meddle with the business side of it. That's I think also the one thing about art that kind of kept me back is that if I were dealing with like if I want to be an artist, I have to be in the business side of things too, like having my art like in galleries, be my own manager and like talk to people in galleries and like try to network that way. But if I'm like writing, if I'm just a developer, I can just like sit somewhere and just code and have somebody else handle like the business development stuff. So
makes sense, a lot less stressful.
yes, so for some people I think they thrive in that, entrepreneurs, that's like that's a whole different mindset. That's like a whole mind. I'm over here. I'm just like cultivating this like tinkering side, but the whole business side is a whole nother thing.
I love that you understand that about yourself, though.
I'm old. I'm old. I'm lazy. I just want to do my thing.
Is there any specific language you would recommend someone to start with? Maybe.
For those that are learning. It really depends on where you want to go into, but like of course I don't recommend learning JavaScript as your first programming language, but that's what I went with. And I learned also a little bit of Python, a little bit of Ruby while I was learning JavaScript. And for some reason, learning these two other languages helped make JavaScript make more sense. And that's when it all started clicking better, was when I was like learning Python, learning Ruby. But yeah, I don't recommend JavaScript, but if you're gonna be in web development, then you just gotta bear down on JavaScript.
It's your cup of tea in the morning.
Although JavaScript's gotten better. We have TypeScript now, so
yeah, which is more like Java.
It's like, yeah, we get like better error messages, so you're not like in this mystery, why is my code not working? And then JavaScript is just saying, oh, it's just undefined. I don't know. What's the common one? Null, undefined of null, error, type error.
I'm so weak.
It's just like, I don't know what that is.
But hey, it's been really fun having you on this podcast today, Melissa. And for anyone watching, I hope you've taken her words with a grain of salt, because obviously she's very smart and she's made everything sound a lot easier than it is. But I really hope it helps, and yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. I'm a bit concerned about the audio, but how that turned out.